You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers with Saya, Anissa, and Boroma. I am Saya. Hello.
I am Boroma. Hi. And this time we have kicked Anissa out.
Well, she chose not to be here. She could have been.
Yeah. Like she's like, well, I have experienced this excitement way before you, and I just refuse to be pulled in again.
Actually, in her defense, she was ill, and so she couldn't partake in this transnational experience that we're about to talk about, which is, I guess, look, technically it's a movie review, right?
It was not a movie. I just, you know what? I think technically it's a concert review. I mean, like the coziest concert ever.
Yeah, man. We're recording this a week after we've gone to see Yet to Come in Busan, the BTS concert film version of the concert that they gave in October, the free one that nobody could watch because it crashed after 2 songs and 100 million people trying to watch at the same time. 50 million, right? We're trying to watch at the same time. And I had woken up especially for it. But at least I got 2 songs. But the live stream has been up on YouTube like for months. So it's not like it wasn't a mystery. Everyone knew what was in the concert. However, it felt like a completely new thing. Okay, where should we start with this?
Okay, where we should start is by saying that, like, the Busan concert, if you guys don't follow BTS or just follow them peripherally, it was basically like the last concert the entire group did together before their enlistment started, before Jin enlisted, and then like the rest of them will be enlisting over the next year or so. So big deal.
Very big
deal.
But
also there was this energy around the Busan concert that was just different from the get-go. And as brand new BTS enthusiasts, this was the first almost live concert that we knew was going to happen, and were kind of looking forward to. Like, of course, the live stream version, because neither of us were flying to Busan to watch it. Even if we could afford that, that close to the concert. And then, so in October of 2022, they held this concert in Busan. Technically, it was part of this 2030 Expo that was happening.
Like a bid for it, I think.
In that city. Yeah. But this was completely done with their own money. From what I can understand, like they didn't really get as much support from the city as you would kind of expect. Like a huge thing is happening here. You would think the city would bend over backwards.
Yes,
well,
we're unsurprised about how bureaucracy works and how politics likes to do its thing. I guess
basically,
that's too long to get into.
Yeah. But it's an interesting reflection on how governments of certain areas tend to, like, I don't know, what's the English equivalent of like apne pair mein kurali marna, like you stub your own toe with a hammer. Like there's an English equivalent to that, which I know, but it's not coming to my
nose to spite your face.
Yeah, but not quite. But it's like, you know, you're wielding a weapon and then you're just hitting yourself with it. That's what's.
Do you know what? I can't think of an English version of that. If anyone knows,
I don't think maybe there's no direct equivalence to this, but like that's kind of what it is. Like they think they're doing things correctly, but so much of your ego red tapeism gets in.
I just think it's great that, like, you know, they wanted to, it was political exploitation for sure. They wanted to use them, but in the end, that concert ended up being such a boon to the group. Like, it just gives me so much satisfaction.
But like, explain how. You can't just have that thought in your head and not explain how it was a boon.
I mean, well, for one, it gave them an opportunity to have that kind of magnificent send-off and to give themselves it. And in a way, they were able to, no, not in a way, they were able to do it completely on their own terms, even though it was meant to be like this bid for the World Expo. Like, you gave them an opportunity to do something that was deeply meaningful for them, and they did it their way. And if you remember the day after that was when they announced that they were going off to army. And if you recall, sorry, I shouldn't use army because it's confusing. They were going off to military service. And if you recall that the months before that had like dragged out this whole question of whether they would be exempt and whether they wouldn't. And because, of course, they are not able to comment as freely as they may wish to because the company has its own plans and just, they have to do things according to the way that's appropriate and in a way that isn't harmful to them. So they had, as we know now, they'd been planning to announce their enlistment from before COVID, but it had basically just rolled on and on with all of the things that were happening. So with the benefit of hindsight, you can see how that freedom of just like knowing that they were going to announce this the next day, they just gave that performance everything, and it was so good. And I remember I was texting you that morning when the concert was airing, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is the most mature performance I've ever seen from them. It's like they're like all in leathers and it's like metal, like, and the live band was amazing. And there was
I agree.
like, I've watched 1,000 YouTube videos, but watching that live did feel different. I was so excited and, it was thrilling and you got the buzz and everything. And then it cut out after 2 songs.
Oh.
And it just wasn't the same after that. But since then, like I've watched that concert like multiple times. And I still wanted to go and see it in the cinema, of course, as did like everyone. And it had a very limited run. So it was like running for like maybe 4 days max across the world pretty much. So you went and saw it in India and I saw it here in England. And even Anissa had the opportunity to see it, except she was struck down by an awful cold, so she couldn't go. How cool would it have been if all 3 of us had seen it?
Yeah, I almost didn't catch it because I was convinced that there's no way it was coming to India. Which honestly, that is how low my expectation is at this point, because it's just a movie. Why wouldn't it air in theaters in India? But I kept thinking there's no way they would invest money in that. Like, you would have to like get distributors to agree. You have to get theaters to agree. It just like it seemed like the barriers were too high just because of how dumb people were. Even though the fandom is definitely here, it's huge. And then I just randomly looked up just to see, out of curiosity, like I think 4 days before it started airing here. Not airing, what do you call it?
Release.
It just came to theaters. Release. And it was there. It was there. And I had an option of, I think, 3 theaters across the city. And there were like a lot of screening options. I was just not expecting that. And also, Saya had put it in my head that I should go and watch the ScreenX
Before you
version.
say that, let's talk about the formats that it was released in. So it was released in 3 different formats. There was the standard 2D format, which you go to the cinema, you watch the screen. And it's just completely normal cinema experience. They released it in a 4DX as well, which is like this multi-sensory experience. Also 2D, but like your seats move and buck around and you get wind and air and water and all of that. For context, the Avatar sequel, was it The Way of Water or something? That is like meant to be a huge cinematic event in the 4DX experience. And the third one is the ScreenX release, which is like a 270 degrees surround screen. And so the film had been edited differently for each format, pretty much. Well, for the ScreenX format, it would have been edited differently because you're not just having that screen in front of you, you're also having it on 2 sides. And oh my God, it was so good. I've never been to any other like a non-2D screening before. In fact, like the last time I went to the cinema was to see like Little Women in 2019. And before that, the last time I had gone to the cinema was to see The Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1 maybe. I didn't even bother going to see Part 2, like the very last one. So, like in the last 12-ish years, I've been to the cinema like a handful of times. So, yeah. This just, tell me, you went a day before I went Okay, so I watched two different screenings. I watched the 4DX and I watched the ScreenX. And Burma, you watched the ScreenX. Should we talk about that first and then we'll talk about 4DX?
Okay. So yeah, I mean, even though Saya and another of our friend were talking about this like excitedly for a while, I'd kind of tuned out the whole thing because I was like, yeah, it's not gonna air here. I mean, it's not gonna get released here. Why should I
Ye
bother?
of little faith.
Yeah. I should have trusted the fandom here more, or I should have trusted Hybe's insight into how much money they
You
could
should have
make out of
trusted
India more.
capitalism more.
And oh my God, I was so pleasantly surprised at how many theater timings we had. And it was running here, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So 5 days in India. And of course, if it's running in Calcutta, which is almost like the backwaters of other metropolis in this country, it's probably running in a lot of tier 2 and tier 1 cities across the country. What was so great was that I booked it, and I almost didn't get my favorite seats because everybody had like, I saw when I went in, this was like 4 or 5 days before the first day. I saw that most of the times were almost nearly filled up, which was like super impressive because I'm like, how are there so many people in my city who are looking forward to a BTS film? But then I noticed that everybody was booking like the back seats, which is what we do in this. Like, this is true of all theater experiences in my country. People start booking from like the farthest seat because then you kind of get like an eagle's eye, and I just don't understand why that experience is priced, because then the the screen is the smallest when you're the farthest away from it. I like being kind of like in the first 1/3.
Right.
I don't mind if I have to sort of like crane my head up a little at the screen. I kind of like that experience. It's not too much.
Yeah.
But like so my favorite row is like E, which is like the 5th row from the first. And that row was almost filled. There was like one seat left, and I grabbed it. And this is a stupid anecdote, but just like whatever.
Oh, I've got one to add after you.
I arrived there. Oh, okay. So once I arrived there, popcorn and drinks in hand, because I was like, hey, this is a relatively short thing. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. I'm like, I might as well get my like food stuff beforehand. There's no way there's going to be an interval in the middle of like a bunch of songs. How wrong I was. So I go in there. It was supposed to start at 8 p.m. And the entire, so there are these three, there is this big waiting area. There are three doors, like to three different screens, and ScreenX is the final one on my left ahead. And that entire lobby area is filled with clearly BTS fans. Primarily like high schoolers and college goers, but quite a few, adults. I don't know what else to call us, like aside
Mature
from just adults,
fans.
even though I guess because college goers are technically also adults, but like, hey,
non-kids.
And like I was pleasantly surprised at seeing quite a few men and like boys in there, mostly boys. And yeah, and also so there were like a group of like these baby hijabi girls who had like their wearing like jeans and like having this scarf rolled up and all of that stuff. But like what I absolutely loved was all of them were wearing like variations of purple.
Yes.
That was so cool. Everybody was wearing variations of purple, but like the scarves were almost like this was planned. They had planned this. So we entered. Okay, so we're waiting there, right? So we're like, oh, it's gonna open up. So the other halls were screening other Indian movies. Like there's a Shah Rukh Khan movie that's getting like 900 screenings a day. So other halls was like showing those. So we could hear bits of that when the doors would open. The hall where we were supposed to go in, ScreenX, was under housekeeping, which is like they had a board out. So, they were cleaning up after the previous screening. So we're like, hey, okay, because we're just going to wait. And we're waiting. And we're waiting. We finally are allowed to go in at 8:35. This almost never happens. I should point out.
When was it meant to start?
It's supposed to start at 8.
Oh, wow.
So oh no, I'm so sorry. It was supposed to start at 7:30. We go in at 8:05. This time is completely off. And so it's basically 35 minutes late in starting. Now, I assure you, this is very unusual. Usually, with these kind of multiplex theaters, if there is that kind of delay, they would come out and explain to us that something has happened. There's like a major, I don't know, they're cleaning vomit or something. Something horrible has
Yeah.
happened. Like it would never be this complete silence while all of us are just waiting patiently in line for over half an hour. It's very odd. Anyway, but like, so part of me, like the cynical part of me, is like, yeah, all they're seeing is like like majority of them are like teenage girls, so probably the entire group is getting dismissed and nobody just wants to come out and explain anything. Anyway, eventually we are allowed in. So at 8:05, I finally enter the hall with all my comrades in waiting, and we settle in to find out exactly what like a BTS movie is supposed to be. Because mind you, unlike Saya, who'd actually been anticipating this, I had like muted the whole thing out, so I didn't actually know what I was going
I feel
in for.
offended.
Is this a documentary?
Retroactively.
Is this what am I getting in for?
She cynically rolls up to a BTS concert showing. and then
And then
and then did you have fun?
oh yeah, so much. I was not expecting this. I have attended very few concerts in my life, and mostly to play. I've basically accompanied fans of bands to concerts they wanted to attend to, and they had nobody else to go with, so they would drag me, and I'm perfectly happy jumping to music. But I was not really
Invested.
emotionally invested. Yeah. I have attended 2 live concerts. So yeah, neither of them were like my kind of music. So I was like, yay, bopping around. But I just forgot all about them as soon as
Insincere
I left the
bopping, I
place.
see.
Yeah. But what happened in there was, from like the moment they started like the intro, which is basically this animated segment, people just lost their. I have clips. I went in there prepared, like fully. My phone was charged. I was going to take clips, if not of the actual thing on screen, because of course, we've already seen versions of this stuff online so much. I was like, I'm gonna take videos of people around me. I don't care. Like, even if they try to stop me, I need proof that these people exist around me.
Yoongi, marry me!
And oh my god, that happened. I was not expecting that. This girl behind me, which by the way, this human being was dedicated. She had the lyrics of every song sung, completely memorized.
Amazing.
And she wasn't just singing along, she was like screaming her lungs out. And in the final half hour, like, she could barely croak. You could hear her like suppressing her cough, but she would not be, she would not be suppressed.
That is what you call commitment.
Oh. And like, she was really emotionally like her shrieking just made me feel so good. I was like, my god, this is
Yeah.
like emotional investment.
You know what's
I
hilarious?
wish I had her gumption. Yeah.
What's hilarious is that both of us made this choice, and I'm not sure about your general sort of cinema experience, but like, I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I like going alone. I'm not a wolf. I'm
me
just
too.
a hedgehog. I like going alone. I like going when it's empty, and I purposely plan to go when there's the least possible number of people. And in this case,
do I.
both of us like deliberately chose the performance that would have the most, the biggest crowd, and I sat with people on every side of me, and I loved it. Oh, it was just
same.
man. Here's the thing, like, I've never been to this kind of concert before. Like, I've been to one concert before in my life, basically one. And it was like an Islamic nasheed concert. Like, Muslims have their whole own music culture, which is very different to mainstream music. And I went to, it was in the Royal Albert Hall, maybe in like 2005 or 6 or something like that. It was amazing. I loved it. But it wasn't what other people would necessarily consider a bop. It's quite like laid back. It was a very sit down concert, and like I enjoy this because I go to them to sing along while no one can hear me singing. So, and as nobody will know except possibly our patrons who have been listening to our voice note diaries, I'd lost my voice for about 3 weeks before that. So I went in there on the very on the tail end of like my voice wasn't completely recovered. It's still not completely, although it's less noticeable now. So I was like, can I even sing along though? I just want to sing along. I was like, I'm definitely not screaming. And I told the friend our mutual friend who I went with, look, I hope you don't mind if I'm a bit of a reserved viewer. I'll just quietly enjoy it in my heart. I'm telling you, my dudes, I screamed. I actually screamed, and I've never done it before in my life. She was doing it. Everyone was doing it. I was like, ah! I did it. I enjoyed it. And somehow, because basically when I have like losing my voice, I lost all the upper registers first, and I still haven't got a lot of it back. In that like 2 hours, it miraculously returned, and it was amazing. It was the most fun thing.
Oh, I heard her sing. Like she finally sent me clips.
Wait,
and
you heard me?
Her sing along.
Oh no!
I heard you in one of your clips, and you heard your voice.
Okay, I didn't hear that. I must not have been listening carefully enough. Probably going
it was like...
wow.
Oh my god! And I'm not at all confident in being able to accurately repeat lyrics, even when technically I know what they are.
But with some lines, man, your brain is just giving it to you.
But like it didn't matter if I jumbled it up, right? Because everybody around me seemed to A, know the lyrics, and B, they were so loud, my voice
exactly. It doesn't matter if you're like completely wrong, because everything is right. This is interesting because I've been thinking about this like off and on for a while, and obviously there's not going to be any concerts until soonest 2025. But like I've watched a lot of like stadium fan cams and things like that, and you're just like, a stadium is so huge. They aren't even dots. Like you can't even see them. I don't understand why you would go. They're just like, you're just going to watch screens, and you can do that at home, she says. Completely rethinking it now. But then I started like reading what other people were saying, like under those fan cams. They would make comments about how like at a BTS concert, there's no bad seat in the house. If you're close to the stage, you see the boys. If you're far, you're in the middle of a huge party. And then I was reading this really interesting Twitter thread a while back about people who had been to varieties of concerts, and they were like, every concert's environment is pretty much a dead environment when you compare them to BTS concerts. So that, that's accurate, I think, especially because I had actually gone to 2 screenings of Yet to Come. The one I planned to go to, the premeditated one, was the ScreenX one that I went with my friend. But then someone gave me a gift of a cinema voucher, and I was like, I have no interest in cinema. And it came at exactly that time. I was like, okay, 4DX it is, let's go. Like, I don't understand how you're going to make a concert like a multi-sensory experience. It's not like they're throwing water on the stage. It wasn't that concert. Like, so what, at worst they're gonna maybe the seats will vibrate in time with the music or something, and that'd be quite cool. So I went, and it was interesting, but I have to say my conclusion is there were some really cool parts. I'll start with the cool parts. So the cool parts were that, like, at times, like when the screen is zooming in, the seats would do this thing where it made you feel like you were flying into the screen. That was cool.
Ooh.
That was very cool. And the vibrations, like when the fireworks went off, you'd get like that brrr in the seats, and that was cool as well.
Yeah.
And it did sort of vibrate in time with the beat as well. All of that was very cool. But my conclusion is that it felt like trying to watch a concert on a rather uncomfortable bus ride. And I spend a lot of time on buses, and it felt very the same. I had gone to the cinema on the bus. I went home from the cinema on the bus. And
while you were watching the cinema, you were also on the bus.
Exactly. So it was kind of weird and uncomfortable, and like Yeah, I'd like my seat not to move, I think, when I watch film. And also my seat was
Or
really
at least we should
disgusting.
be able to turn it off, man, if it's
But then you
getting
went there for that
tiring.
reason. It just felt really
Uh,
like, can you stop bucking around? I just want to watch this without being like shucked this way and that.
Yeah, I agree. I will say this, that didn't have very high expectations of the Screen X experience. So when you suggested, because I was initially just going to book like a normal IMAX viewing, and then you were like, no, book ScreenX. So I was like, okay, fine, might as well. I have not enjoyed movies in
pressure.
ScreenX like they.
Oh, have you
because
seen it in
I
ScreenX before?
yeah, I didn't realize that this was what ScreenX was when we were talking about it. But like, I have watched movies, and what they tend to do is, because they edit it for technically three screens, like there's the one on your right, one on your left, and then the
one in the
one
center.
that the main screen in front. They tend to squish it, like you're zoomed in. And then so
Oh,
they
you mean
have
like
like
they stretch it
extra
out?
images to put on the sides.
Okay.
Yeah, but like they don't artificially stretch it out. Instead, what they do is, if there is like, imagine just a normal rectangle, but like you just crop from above, crop from below, and now you are trying to, like, you stretch this cropped version onto the same screen. What happens is you have more on the sides, right? And that is it fills up like the two sides of your 270 version. I
That's
hate
cheating.
it, because I want it. That's
Yeah.
cheating, because I want, like, so they did that with Avatar, which I watched in ScreenX. That is not how the filmmaker wants it seen, even though they had like apparently shot extra footage to put on the sides and stuff like that. I later on went and I watched Avatar twice. Even though the story itself probably would not have, like, I mean, part two wasn't something to like go watch twice. The cinematic experience was absolutely worth it. And I was right. When you watch it on a proper big screen instead of like this weirdly truncated experience, it's even better. It's even better. So I generally don't have a very I don't have high expectations of ScreenX experiences. But what Hype did was different. They didn't crop it so they had extra stuff on the side. They took the footage of like concert goers and put it on the side. So you felt like you were standing in the middle of the concert with other people on both sides. And then occasionally when they would have like on stage, like when the boys were just like on stage singing together, and they are zooming in on maybe 2 or 3 at a time, the rest of them were on the side.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you would have like them zooming in on, let's say, Yoongi or like Jimin, and then you would have like V on your right, and you would have like I don't know, Jungkook or Namjoon on the left. It's just, you felt like you could keep your eyes on all of them, even though right at the center they were zooming in on one person. So this was very deliberately done. It was well thought out, and you could kind of see, like, because they had made
And
movies like this before, right?
As well.
It was pre-planned, exactly.
I don't know if they've done ScreenX before.
No, I don't think they have done ScreenX, but they have made movies like this before. So when they were planning for ScreenX, they've clearly, exactly. So they had the concept in their mind. So basically, this finally, I see the appeal of ScreenX. The first time it actually felt worth it.
You needed to see the right thing. You know what's funny is that, okay, so although you had like been the last to decide to go, you were the first to actually see it between the three of us. And so you had gone on the Thursday, I think, and I went to 4DX on the Friday, and then I and our friend went to the ScreenX on Saturday. And so what was I saying to you beforehand? I don't know if I want you to tell me everything or tell me nothing, because despite having seen this like concept multiple times, I still was like, is it going to be a spoiler? Is it going to be a spoiler? And because like it, even if you've seen that concert like a million times, seeing it on a small screen, even if you have a big TV, which I don't, I just watch it on my computer screen, which is like, 13-inch, tiny, inadequate. Unacceptable. It's different. Small screen, big screen. Yeah. 2, it was actually completely different footage. Like what you saw in the live stream, and this must have been like deliberate choice on their part is like, if you have seen the live screen, there needs to be a value for live stream. There needs to be like a value for money reason to see it on the big screen that is more than just seeing it on a big screen. Like the close-ups, the camera angles, everything was different, and like it was recognizable.
They were clearly saving this.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. And because like
oh,
we were saying after it finished, you were like, oh yeah, there's going to be the Weverse replay, and then we're like, why isn't there a replay? And then like on the official YouTube channel, they had just released like the opening songs. And then they released was it one of the other ones, which I didn't watch as much, so I can't even remember which one it was. I apologize. And then we were like, well, where's the rest? This is what they'd been saving it for.
yeah. But also they had been very conservative about the angles they use, because they have like several cameras around the stage that they could have given us angle shots from. But in the replays, all we got was like a close-up version and like a far away version of the camera. So it's both of it was very flat. Like the replays that we got, and then you had the fan cams, which was giving us all kinds of angles. So what Sai and I ended up doing were like, we kept watching, especially Sai, I have to admit, she would send me clips and then I would watch them. we would just watch the same performances sort of like shot from different fan cams, because while the replay that Bangtan TV gave us was higher in quality, it was just not that dynamically shot. And what did we know? We didn't know that they were basically saving all the dynamic shots for this.
But now I think about it, I'm like, of course, they're pros. They've been doing this for years. Their concert DVDs, are always like, you have to hold something back. Like what they give for free is amazing. But when you realize what they give for paying customers, you're like, damn, I wish I was rich. But you know what? It was worth every penny. Like it was, man, cinema is so expensive these days. Like back when I used to do my solo jaunts to the cinema, I'd pay $5 a ticket. And, I'd go and see each Lord of the Rings 3 times, and every Harry Potter I think I went to see 3 times as well. And it was my thing. It was something I did alone and I enjoyed. But like when it's like 25 quid a ticket, it's not a hobby.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It was really expensive, but it was really worth it in this case.
Wow. I mean, comparatively, we had an easy time here. Like ScreenX for me wasn't that expensive. It was something like, I got like decent seats, so I was paying like 1,100. So that's like 11 pounds for you guys. So so I paid less than half of what you paid for ScreenX.
And the annoying thing is, like, in the cinema that we went to see it in, they literally had one ScreenX screening. They had 4DX like 1,000 times, but there was just one ScreenX. And Burma, you sent us a couple of clips of your evening, and it was such a party. I was so stoked. I was like, oh my God, I want to be there. And you said I had heard my first Yoongi Marry Me, and I was like, oh, I want to hear that. And then I went to my 4DX on like the Friday night. It was so tanda, man.
Yeah.
It was just cold. It was boring. I was disappointed. I was like, why is everyone boring? I'm here to sing. I'm here to like jump. I'm here to scream if needed, but probably not that because my throat was still really weak. It was so tanda. Like it was so cold. And it was the most because it was the first screening that had been offered. The extra screenings were added much later. So these are the people who were like booked right away because they wanted to see it as soon as it was available. It was so boring. I was so disappointed that evening.
Aww.
And so then the next day I was like, when I was with my friend, I was like, I hope it's better than this. Oh, shall I tell you about the bad thing that happened in the middle of that screening, actually? Let's talk about this.
Was that with the 4D version or was the ScreenX version?
It was the 4DX. Okay. So this really bad thing happened. We were in the middle of the film and it just stopped on Jungkook's face, by the way. And everyone was like, what's happening? What's going on? Why has it frozen? Is it broken? Has the world ended? And then a crowd of ushers come in, and he stands in the corner, like the lead one stands at the front and he yells up. Actually, I wrote down the words so I could tell you. So I'm going to look them up and tell you the exact words he said. Because if I try to say it in my own words, it won't be as good. Okay. So they basically shouted at everyone to switch off their phones, and he goes, "It's illegal to record. We've told every single row. It's piracy and it's a crime. And if we see anyone using their phone for any reason, we will remove you, take all of your details, and report you to the police." And no. Then it was like, "Is that clear? Have you understood?" And a crowd of girls just chorused out, "Yes." And you're just like, can you not though? Because, you know,
Yeah.
like my immediate thought is, one, why are you infantilizing this cinema full of people who you've clearly sort of classified as a certain type, you know, teenage girls that you can tell off. And because those girls are used to being told off, they respond in the way that they're expected to respond. And I'm sitting there getting madder and madder. And you're like, I'm too old for this. How dare you? And it just ruined it. It really ruined it because it was like right in the middle of the film.
Yeah.
And it took me like probably 6 songs before I was able to enjoy it again. And like one of the women sitting behind me was like, "Dude, it's all over the internet." And it is. Like at this point, you're not saving anything. And like, I get it. Like, I do understand. Yes, it is piracy. But at a point, I feel like that if you're a member of staff in that situation, you need to use your discretion a bit. Like, we're human beings capable of discretion for a reason. Like, they're not bots, like, sliding up and down the aisles, smacking people's phones out of their hands, you know? It's a concert. People do this at actual concerts all the time. Like, what do you think? Fan cams. The internet is full of them. It doesn't steal anything from the experience of the concert. It doesn't take anything from the record companies. It's a way of actually making the experience better. And to not understand that, I mean, I think that the thing is, I don't fault people for doing their job, but I don't think that they were doing their job in an appropriate way, because they really should just have shown some discretion. Because when we on our Saturday screening, the one I went to with our friend, because I was paying attention and because I was afraid of that happening again, I noticed the ushers walking up and down, quietly asking people to put their phones away. You could do that. And they did it throughout, and people did put their phones away. But to like actually stop the film and then give everyone like a round telling off, that was unnecessary.
Of course it was unnecessary. You guys are paying customers. You weren't sitting there like watching the stuff for free, and they weren't doing you favors. It's like, even if you were watching it for free, who ruins an experience like that? If this was a movie and you stopped it midway to tell the audience off, your customers off, who does that? They would never have done that if that wasn't a room full of teenagers as they saw it.
Teenage girls, come on, we hate teenage girls.
And of course they said yes. They just want the thing to resume and the ushers to
because
go away.
Because this is the world all of us grew up in and exist in. Is we know everybody hates us. We have to learn how to appease and pacify the authorities who make it as if what they're doing is legitimate, like this level of reaction is legitimate, and it's not. It's just, it made me really angry because it is misogyny. It's just another type, another way in which we express how much we hate 1, girls, 2, women, 3, anything that they like. And like we take it to a degree that it doesn't need to be taken to. And that just made me so angry. And there was, and because he was like, you know, I'm afraid of authority. If you're going to threaten someone like me of reporting me to the police, I'm not going to take my phone out. My sisters thought I was dead because I couldn't take my phone out for like 2 hours to just text them and say, "Oh, I'm going to be home." You know? So I was too afraid to take my phone out just to say, "By the way, I'm not dead. I'm just going to be home late." And when I finally opened my phone, they were like, "Oh, where are you? Aren't you coming home? Are you dead?" That wasn't okay.
Man, I mean,
so that ruined
I get it. Like, listen, when we were waiting outside the theater for 35 minutes to be let in, pretty much unheard of on a multiplex. But more importantly, like 99% of the group were, you know, girls. They were so patient. Like, there was some grumbling, but quiet grumbling. Mostly they were just hyping each other up, and they're like, "Hey, let's wait. It's fine. We'll wait a little longer. It's fine. It's fine." So polite. I was losing my
Yeah.
patience, and I'm like, oh, who do I go
'Cause
and smack?
we're used to moving in that world, right? We're used to moving in a world where we need to do a bit of fight.
This they would not have been this quiet if this was like 90% boys. I have stood in front of stadiums where we have weren't being allowed to go in, like some matches starting, and we like it was like a clog jam thing, and we had to maybe wait like 10-15 minutes, and freaking riots have started.
Yeah.
When it's men, they would never do that. Even like teenage boys, they would never stand for it. But like a group of girls, oh, it's fine to just let them stand there for the. It's not. There's no place to sit down. Like we were just standing there
But
outside.
I also think
like we were like schoolgirls being punished.
there's also an entertainment factor in doing that to girls, right? It's like, let's see how far we can go and get away with this. Like, I genuinely feel that there's that factor there in the way the world, but specifically men, treats girls and women. It's just like, can you not? Like, but I don't want to get bogged down in the bad stuff. So I do want to talk about the actual concerts. And oh man, it was so good. I just had so much fun, like singing along at the top of my miniature lungs. And my crowd, the Saturday crowd was so much better than the 4DX crowd. They were no good, but my crowd was still not as hot as your crowd. Your crowd was having the time of their life.
My crowd was so good.
Yeah, and we ended up sitting next to like some people who were looking funny at us every time we made noises, but we just decided to not care. We paid money to be here. It's a concert. We are having fun, and so we went to town. You know the really funny thing, like what you were saying about choosing your seats? I Googled, would you believe I Googled, what's the best seat in the cinema? and like there's a whole science to it. Because my friend and I were talking about this, and we were like, which seats should we choose? The theatre was empty at the time that we were booking. And I was like, no, I've looked it up. There's a real, like a know-how here, which is the middle 2/3 part is the best part, and in the center, as much in the center as possible. Our seats were great. I loved them. They were really good. It wasn't too far back. It wasn't too far forward. And it was just really fun. And what was your favorite songs?
My favorite song, listen, you were absolutely right. I think right after the live ended, because I missed the live entirely. Like you were like, hey, it's happening at a very reasonable time for us. It's like 3 in the afternoon for you.
It was 10 in the morning. I was in bed. I set everything up.
10 in the morning.
I was like lying sideways watching
It was 3 in the afternoon for me. But I just slept through it. So when you started telling me, like, my God, like the Run BTS performance was incredible. And then we kept watching different versions of it. I was like, yeah, this is so good. This is so good. But when I watched it in the theater, I was finally convinced. It was
blown away.
Like insanely good. And I have watched so many practice versions of this, but it was
I will never be tired of that song.
So good. I don't know what happened, what magic happened on stage, that it was that good. Something about just the lighting, the policing of them as a group, like the other dancers around them, everything, just everything. I'm not knowledgeable enough to like tell you what it was that worked, but there was something that just worked in a superlative way.
I think it was just the abandon with which they did it, because they knew what their future, like at that point they knew everything was going to just be open the next day. Like that months of tiring debate, they were going to shut it down. This was their final FU to the world. I love it.
It was so good.
That's why I loved it so much as well.
I couldn't get over how, like, I have watched videos of their previous concerts, right? But there was something about this particular concert. Maybe it was because they had so much control over every aspect of how to set it up. And usually because concerts are done sort of in conjunction with other production companies, others, where you're hosting, like the host country, or like any number of other factors come into maybe they're not familiar with the stage. They don't have full control, and they're working with what they have. Sometimes they have to modify their dances because the stages are unfamiliar and stuff. Here they had control over every aspect of it, exactly the way they wanted to, and they really used it. This is the kind of place where you can give a bunch of newbies the entire control of the stage, and they would have a performance. But when you give like veterans of the industry full control of their stage, this is what they do.
And you know, this is
Ah,
the thing that, like, when we were first sort of getting into them, that I think I said to you quite a lot, was that I actually don't really care for like their MVs. I'm not really interested in like the like CDs or whatever. Their live performances are insane. Like, there's something very like incredibly magnetic and magical and wild, and just there's something really different about their live performances. And I think this
yeah,
concert distilled that in a way that nothing has before it. And for me, I think the thing that sort of the alchemizing, is that a word? Alchemizing factor was the fact that they were like an emotional thing. Like, they know what their future is now.
yeah,
They know what their plans are for the next, 18 months. They know that they're going to be able to shut down all of the criticism that they've been receiving all of this time, and all of the things that they haven't been
yeah,
able to respond to, like, in one fell swoop. That was coming. So now they're like,
yeah,
now it's like a load lifted from, that spiritual weight of all of that bearing down on you for like what, since like 2019. If you think about it being from just as Corona started, it's like what, nearly 3 years of this heavy
yeah.
pressure that's just been pressing down on them harder and harder. And now they know, like, the next day, it's all just going to be gone. Now we can just give it our all. This is our thank you to our fans, our F you to our critics. And it's also a place where they made a mission statement about their future, that their best moment is yet to come. Watch us.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. Oh, that was so good. I love that. I there were
me
a
getting
couple of
teary.
tracks in there. There were a couple of tracks in there that I hadn't really heard because, well, because I'm not exactly very familiar with their body of work, and I have been a less intense enthusiast than Saya has. I've stuck to some of their more popular songs. So things like Mars City and Ugh were ones that I hadn't really heard, or if I had heard, it wasn't like, maybe it was in the passing and I hadn't really paid attention to it. But paired with their performance, of course, I went back. Like, I came
Mm.
home and I immediately pulled those songs up and I
And
listened to
those
them.
lyrics, man. The
Right.
songs
And
that
then
they chose
you
for this set,
so
all
good.
of the best diss tracks, and you're just like, oh, you're so good. And because they also like Cypher Part 3, which is one of their very hard-hitting diss tracks, which is kind
Mm,
of responding to critics from like the underground hip hop kind of space
yeah.
who are just really rude. Like, greatness is knowing when to retire a song when that song has sort of fulfilled its purpose. Like,
Yeah.
like Namjoon was on that stage and he was like, "This is the last time we're performing this song."
I know. I love that
And it's
moment
like,
so
we're putting this
much.
song to bed. It's just everything about that performance was just like, this is the
It's
maturation.
like, I'll do it this one last time and then we
Yeah.
we are,
Exactly. And
retiring this
what's
one.
been so interesting, well, firstly, one of the fascinating things I find about like being in this fandom is that you can enter in 2022 and still feel like you've been with them since day one.
Mm,
And one of the central struggles of this period has been proving that they are artists. So you've had this sort of an identity struggle from being seen only as idols to being acknowledged as artists. And I think the seal on
mm,
chapter 1 is that no one can deny that they're artists now. Like,
yeah.
they have ascended. They've gone to the level where they don't need to be. The thing is, they never needed to apologize for it, and they didn't apologize for it because they did this whole thing where they owned their idolness. Like, yeah, I'm an idol, and
Mm,
what? You can call me, you can call me idol, right? It doesn't matter. You can call me
mm,
whatever you want. I
yeah.
am what I am. But still, to get that sort of critical recognition of their artist status has been really difficult. We know it, but like, the industry is not so friendly, and that, whether that's domestically or whether that's internationally. And there's
Mm.
lots that's been said by much more knowledgeable people on that subject in lots of spaces. Very interesting to read about or watch YouTube videos about. But they're just so interesting. Oh, I hit my mic. I got so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the primary struggles, especially in the latter half of the last decade for them, was the decade of their career. I mean, nobody can deny that they shot to fame really quickly, but like shot to fame for what? Like in many ways, we tend to look down on fame unless we think it's for a substantial reason. And as famous as BTS is, they have for most of their career pretty much been looked down upon by the larger world for that fame, because it's almost like, oh, it's a bubblegum thing. It's like, it's pop and it's like light and only enjoyed by people who enjoy light, superficial things. And all of the
15-year-old
defense,
girls.
yeah, basically 15-year-old girls, and all of the fandom coming out in their defense did absolutely nothing, because the fandom defending them were dismissed wholesale. The One of the first things I heard about BTS when I would read comments from the fandom was like way before I was ever interested in their music, was that their lyrics are so deep and they referenced so many pieces of literature. One of the reasons I knew about Namjoon way before any of the other band members was because of fans talking about how well read he was, and how the lyrics that he put in just had like so many references to stories and protests and like pieces of history and just like
Mythology.
mythology. And those are things that you don't actually realize when you're listening to some of like the most popular tracks. Like you just don't realize it. Just because you don't realize it doesn't mean it's not there. That's where like the intensity of a fandom and like the deeper interest, that is what gets you. But also just like the initial dismissal almost creates like an obstacle that's an insurmountable obstacle to getting to know them. Like if it was something, I don't know, if it was like classical music, you would go into it thinking, hey, this is deep. If I could just learn, I don't know, Italian, I would know what deep things they were talking about. But it's just doesn't happen with K-pop.
Isn't it
Yeah.
Yoongi who said, and forgive me if I've cited the wrong person, that if you listen to us without prejudice, you like us? And like that's very concise and like true.
Much better way of saying everything I was saying before.
But like that's it. Like that's the kernel
that's
of it. If
it.
you
Yeah.
just like could put your preconceptions aside and just listen without bringing all of your baggage to the whole thing, you would. Like I remember when I first actually heard their music, because of course we've heard of them long before without ever listening to a single note of their songs. But I remember when I heard them for the first time, I was really surprised. And the friend who I was talking to about it at that time, I was like, they're good. And like the surprise with which I said that, and I actually feel a little bit I should apologize to armies now for this, but it was genuinely like I didn't expect them to be good.
Yeah. So, once you figure that out, which doesn't take too long, once you actually start seriously listening to their music and kind of trying to pay attention to the lyrics.
Oh, I have a question for you. Sorry, completely interrupting.
Yeah. Go on.
Did your version of the film have subtitles for the songs?
Only when they were speaking. Yeah. Like not singing.
Yeah, I was really disappointed.
Yeah, so was I, because it said Korean with subtitles, and I had high expectations, but they were like, no.
When I went on Twitter afterwards, I saw that in other countries they had subtitles for everything. Like for all of the songs, they had subtitles. I would have really appreciated that.
Okay,
in
that is annoying.
The rap songs, especially.
Yeah, I would have appreciated that too. Which, by the way, okay, listen, I have to give a shout out to the people who were in the audience with me. Majority of them were behind me. Like I said, I was very careful about my seat selection. My row and the row right in front of me were that's it. Like they had the front 3-4 rows were almost empty, and like all seats behind me were like packed. So clearly they were they had their own signs about like the seats they were getting. But that also meant that I had sparsely anybody in front of me and everybody behind me, and like the music was like coming from in front, but also from like the side and from behind. Like I had like stereophonic thing happening where people were listening and like rapping along and singing along behind me. And like properly enunciating the words. They knew the lyrics. I was just humming along and yelling and like maybe chanting a few words here and there, but they knew their shit. And I loved it. And all of the screaming and stuff, like if all of the clips that I took was primarily like points where people were practically like, listen, for like 80% of the performance, everybody was standing up and jumping. They had their phones out, not because they were taking clips so much, but because they were using the flashlight to do the thing you do at the concert.
Yeah, we had people with their light sticks as well.
Yeah. It's like the people who were in there for the concert experience came prepared for the concert.
Oh, I want to tell you about.
So they were going to have that.
I want to tell you about.
Yeah, go on.
I want to tell you about dressing up.
Okay.
Oh, do you know what? It's so funny how much preparation I put into this experience as if I was going to a real concert, like a concert. Like my friend and I, we were like, oh, what are you going to wear? What are you going to wear? I have like a dress which is the exact same color as Sugar's pink Valentino suit, which he had worn like a few days ago. And I was like, I have a dress that color. I'm going to wear it. No one's going to know. Like, they're not going to make that connection because it's quite, like, tenuous, but, like, I know. And, like, a week before that, I had just, like, for the first time in, like, a decade and a half, like, got my hair dyed in really... Basically, it's a rainbow. It's so pretty, and...
It's glorious.
I love it.
It's absolutely
And nobody
beautiful.
can see it because I have to put my hijab on. I'm telling you, man, I've never understood the challenge of wearing hijab until that time. It's like, I was putting it back on after. I was like, this is how the beautiful hot women feel when they have to like wear hijab after they become Muslim, or like even if when they're wearing it for the first time. This is hard, man. I want to run down the street showing everyone my amazing hair and making them say, look, like, your hair is so cool. My hair is better than everyone's. Astaghfirullah. I'm joking. But like, it was hard. It's been hard. Alhamdulillah. So.
Wow. But you knew you
after
had
all
it,
this time,
and it's it.
Yeah, my friend, she wore a purple hoodie, and she had like army boots. She was like, Jungkook inspo. What else did I have? I also had... Oh, I wore a purple hijab, which sparkled. And yeah, that's it. And as you said, just loads of people turning up in variations of purple, like purple hoodies. Yeah. And it was really fun. And like you could see outside the theatre. Like when I was going in for the 4DX one, there were like a couple of girls and they were standing outside the door and they were like almost shaking and they were like, I'm too scared to go in. And I was like, are you... I heard them. I was like, you're scared? Let's go in together. So we went in together. And they were just like little squealing little kiddies. They were so cute. And again, like the age thing, you saw families there. There were mums with their kids and all of them were like, dressed up. It was so nice.
Yeah, I saw a few dads in the audience, and I'm pretty sure they were like chaperones and not like fans, because a couple of them like just left the hall midway through. Maybe like they went for a smoke.
Too much noise.
Yeah, it was a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But like that is so great, man. I mean, listen, if your kid wants to go to a BTS movie, which is basically a concert, chaperone them and take them. And if they're old enough, like let them go by themselves. It's like the most wholesome thing ever.
There's this, slightly off topic, there's this really cute, like an old video of a Backstreet Boys performance. It's on YouTube. I can't remember which song it is, but it's like one of those family shows. Or maybe it wasn't even a show. It was maybe an actual concert. But basically, all you could see there was dads and their daughters. And it's so interesting. Like, everyone in the comments was like, kudos to those dads for taking their girls to a concert and, like, sitting through a thing that they clearly didn't have interest in, but they wanted to make their daughters happy. Like, that's the world I want to live in, right?
Yeah, me
the
too.
one where you support what it is that your daughter's like, obviously within limits. Like, you're not going to take them to, like, an Eminem concert or something if they're, like, 13 or maybe at any age. So,
I have no idea. Is that bad?
I mean, he swears a lot, and
I don't really listen to Eminem.
Well, see, this is we're getting way off topic if I talk about this now.
Yeah. Okay.
So the conclusion is, I wish that I had begun to like them sooner, so that I didn't have to miss the Permission to Dance live stream, which was like in January or something. I was 6 months late. I'm disappointed in myself. How about you?
I'm kind of glad that this is the moment where I got to know about them and mildly obsess over videos that I've already watched like 10 times. Because listen, if this was like if I was part of the whole journey, this would have consumed me for way too long,
True.
for too many
Yeah.
years. This thing that we have right now, where this is their journey, is
The
like
forced break.
they have yeah, sure, there's the forced break in the journey, but also they have like done a majority of like the rags to riches tale, and they have a different journey ahead of them. But it's like this journey I can just watch and I can appreciate the whole story, and because
Without it
it's
being
so well
agonizing, right?
documented, without it being agonizing, and
Yeah.
also without it like consuming me to the degree I know it would have consumed me if I had like learned about them
Yeah.
before. There are enough things consuming me
Well, the
already.
funny thing I've realized while we've been sort of doing this thing together is that you're a lot more like you're able to hold back a lot more, whereas I'm the head over heels. I'm just gone. I'm still sliding down that like very slippery. I don't even know what you call it. Like those little water chutes. I'm just like I'm still going and I'm going wee all the way down, and I haven't reached the bottom yet. And like I had hoped I had reached the bottom like a while back, but the bottom's nowhere in sight. We'll keep going.
Which is good, which is great. Because I think for you, this hits differently than it does for me. For me, this is like a story that I can, like, I'm finding out bits and pieces about, and it's like thrilling, and I love finding out the details. Whereas for you, it's an experience. Like, you are experiencing different aspects of it, and you're plucking out different perspectives, and that's giving you a different experience. I think we are approaching it wholly differently. I have my own slides that I've had, like bottomless pits that I've slid into. This one is not that for me. I don't think I am more objective about it. I just think like our
I think it's
experiences
a bit more
aren't.
cerebral for you, and it's more emotional for me.
So I think the way you approach fandom has always been different from the way I approach it. Like, I'm thinking of how we experience the K-drama fandom, for instance. For me, the dramas themselves were like discrete points of interest, whereas for you,
It was a whole experience. Yeah, you're right.
it was a whole experience. You dove into like the common sections of open threads. Like, you really you loved it's like the surround sound system of the entire fandom. I just never had that. I don't know what it is. Like, is it a lack of interest in other people? I found myself to, like, honestly, my K-drama experience, like getting into K-dramas 10 years back, was heightened by your enthusiasm. Like, because you were so happy and enthusiastic about the space, that influenced me. I don't think my experience, like if I had entered it alone, would have been nearly as rich. For one thing, I would have known nothing about what the discussion that's going on in the background. But also, like, that experience of like being super excited about something that has just happened, and you watching something separate from me and us discussing that. Like, I can't even like explain clearly what it is, but like I would never have had that, because my other fandom experiences have always been me just really loving the actual canonical content, and then maybe having some idea of what like the fandom is discussing, but like just being like, it's fine, it's other people discussing stuff that's not really, but like that is where your experience starts.
Like, this
kind of
itself is like illustrative. The fact that when I get into something, I needed to bring someone, but like in our case, you. Like, I mean, I'm very grateful for you, like always being ready to come along on my experiences. From K-drama 10 years ago.
That is also true. It was K-dramas 10 years ago, and it's BTS in 2022.
But I'm also glad to
and
know.
if Saya hadn't just like,
good.
Yeah, if you hadn't been like, please, listen, I think I like their music. I think I like these boys. Like, there's so much to watch. And you just kept pulling me into this stuff. And to be fair, I was like separately somewhat interested in BTS. Like over the last year or so, I'd slowly started learning more about them,
Mm.
and especially Namjoon. Like I told you, he was my point of entry, but not that way. Like not like the full tilt, headlong plunge. That was you. You pulled me along.
I'm grateful that whenever you got into something, it didn't take over your life or like ruin everything, because that happens to me, right? So I'm like, I actually am quite mindful of pulling people into the things I'm into, because I would feel responsible if it went wrong. And it's just very comforting that, like, you're my success story. Because the number of people that like I try to take with me versus the number of people who've really come with me, like, big difference, very big difference. And like I was talking the other day to the friend that I went to the concert with, the friend that I went with, who is like a friend of all three of us. I was just saying to her, like, what made you decide that day? Because when Anissa came, we actually went and met up with her in person with her and her friend who was also visiting from the States. And like it was before Anissa had arrived and I had got to the cafe first, and we were just sitting in the basement and like talking about like what dramas we were watching lately. And I just like, what made her decide to say, and I've got into BTS recently? Because I never would have mentioned it if she hadn't. Like I wouldn't have said it in 1,000 years. It's like you're slightly not embarrassing, but like you only would tell it to someone who understands. And that was it. She was like, I wouldn't have told it to anyone else in my life, but I thought you would get it. And so that was just like, you know what? It's been so nice. And the fact that we have a group chat now, and like we don't have to torture Anissa with all of our like BTS talk all the time, which I'm sure she's very grateful for.
I think Anissa's okay with like 10% of what
but
we
like
do.
the depth into which we need to go, that's probably like, take it, go get a room, literally. So.
Yeah, and also I mean I'm so glad that there is like she is the third mutual friend. We're being so careful.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be
also
identified.
in the room because
that's why we're being careful.
Yeah, because then I can kind of like not pay attention to everything that's happening in there. Just only go in there when I'm ready.
Otherwise, Worm has to like experience the pressure of me expecting a reply, because I never say it's okay not to reply. Because I want a reply. I need you to validate my observations immediately, or at least within the next 45 minutes.
And our friend is very good about like actually, checking in
bless her.
whenever there's a message there. Yeah, bless her. Because this allows me to be part of the conversation and not get kicked out because I'm not responding.
Also because like she externalizes her emotions much better than like either of us do, I think, which makes it easy to share like what is deep in my heart. Which, me being sort of the Yoongi of our group it's good practice. Don't hit me with your emotions, go away. I don't like people and I don't like hugs. But I secretly do. Okay, I think that's a good place to leave it, right?
Yeah. So any final thoughts, Zaya, before
I want to do it again, but I can't. I'm disappointed.
It's no longer in the theater.
I wish it was. I'd go again.
Yeah. I honestly was quite happy with my first experience and didn't want to repeat it. Kind of, I was afraid immediately after I exited the theater. I was like, how likely is it that this experience with this kind of an audience will happen again? It just didn't seem very likely. I don't want to ruin it with the second screening where the audience is all, like you said, thanda and like not like emotive at all and too self-conscious to scream or jump or anything. But I loved it. I will do it again, and also if I can afford it, I at least once want to attend a concert of there, like a live concert.
But let's get the best seats.
Let's get the
most expensive. Look, I'm going to start saving now. I'm ready.
We're going to have to. No, it's not just about like saving it, but like we'll have to
get
practically
there.
Like camp out on the
they
internet.
Sell out
like
in less than a
5
minute.
days ahead of
how
time.
Can you even? Like,
That's
I don't know how.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, guys, that. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Should we say? Okay,
Yeah,
let's tell everybody. So Anissa is sitting in on this conversation muted. So we're like having a really fun time, like a two-way conversation, but also a three-way one in the text chat.
Yeah. So like she snuck into the conversation like
We
halfway
dragged her
through. So we dragged her in, yeah. So Anissa's been reacting to our conversation.
It's because I haven't
live.
seen. We haven't all been together since like the year in Yak. And
Yeah, it's been a while.
And because I was sick for so long, I couldn't even like talk to you guys for a while. So yay!
Yeah. Like her voice was really, really badly gone. Okay, guys. So you can find Dramas Over Flowers on social media like Twitter at Dramas Overflow.
And you can find me at Not Now Saya.
And you can find me, Parma, at The Drama Notes. And you can find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers_ and email us at dramasoverflowers@gmail.com.
And you can find us on Facebook. Just search Dramas Over Flowers. And our website is dramasoverflowers.net.
We also have a newsletter now where we kind of like email you once a month-ish. So, like sign up, links below.
And finally, Dramas Over Flowers is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. That's it.
Yay! We got that right.
And the best moment is yet to come.
Yay! Okay.
Bye.